Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
It's late on a Thursday night. It must mean it's time for, once again, To the Outer Limits. Welcome, everybody. John Suttress here with Gabe Hardman and our returning champion, Andy Parks. Good to see everybody. We are going to talk about episode 13, Tourist Attraction, one that Gabe has been looking forward to for only one reason.
Ralph Meeker.
Yeah. Ralph Meeker, indeed. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So...
the sad fact in this episode, Ralph Meeker is clearly drunk while he's shooting, and like I have an enormous amount of respect for Mr. Meeker, but my God, there are a couple scenes in this where you could smell it on his breath.
He's definitely sleepwalking through this episode. I will give you that. But I like the. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We watched it earlier in the night, and I told my wife, this is a pretty sweet gig because you stand on the boat, and then some other schmuck has to get filmed underwater.
Yeah.
Do all that shit.
Yeah, well, not only some other schmuck filmed underwater, but all the schmucks wearing those fish suits underwater, I mean, like having to, well, all three of them, because there's only three suits, but there is kind of a great cast in it. I mean, it's
honestly, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, go on, Gabe.
It's a totally goofy episode, and I really, it's a sort of a guilty pleasure. I mean, how could you deny that ridiculous Fishman design to the world? I mean, we wouldn't have that if this episode didn't exist. With his ridiculous huge eyes and
his supersonic claw.
Yes. Yeah, it's you might remember his fingers. Or you might not. Like they pointed his, I don't know, his foot and call them fingers. But it's one, but it is one of these kind of iconic, if goofball, designs from the Outer Limits. It's one
really, because honestly, I don't remember watching this episode ever.
Really, because for one thing, it doesn't really feel like an Outer Limits episode.
Clearly not. Absolutely not.
Like a Bird-Eye Gordon movie, I mean, like
yes,
but it's kind of very, the way that it's shot is very, kind of flat-footed, and it's not, it feels much more of a conventional TV show, but at the same time, there is a fun to it that of sorts. I mean, it's both trying to be serious and kind of deeply goofy.
Yeah. Well, we knew as soon as that, it teases the monster.
Yeah.
And we both cracked up and we were like, well, this is going to be a fun episode. If this thing is wandering around with its buggy eye, which apparently it's blind, but it has those buggy eyes.
It makes.
They mentioned that.
Well, as Ed pointed out, yes, it senses through neuroreceptors in its skin becoming aware of its the alien invader.
Did you guys get the sense they had a really hard time getting those eyelids to work because we only saw them move like once or twice?
Yeah, I bet that they were mostly trying to get that thing to do anything, so like eyeball, eyelids working, whatever. Do we have anything like a shot? Let's move on, I mean, and it's just a classic thing. Practical effects will cost, eat your day. So, right. Doing anything like that, much less having these guys underwater and scuba guys inside it. Supposedly they would, this was like the biggest kind of sculpting project that they did. It was designed by Hua Chang and what's his name, Byron Haskin, and who had directed some episodes, but he kind of stealth supervised a lot of the visual or special effects stuff. And they built these giant rubber suits, and then they when they put them in the water, they gained like 100 pounds, and the guys just got to the bottom, and they were big sponges, So, and, sometimes they would accidentally the scuba diver would rip through it or not they couldn't communicate, and this was one of those episodes that went, way over budget and way over schedule. It was only the third episode shot, right? So they, of the regular series episodes, and, and it's the 13th one. So they clearly pushed it back, because they weren't so confident.
Yeah, we pointed out last week that it was the teaser for after Galaxy being the first episode, and Galaxy being the first episode, and Gabe, you mentioned the cast, and it is. I mean, that's thankfully, I think that is one of the saving graces because it is a really interesting cast that have had their share of noir experience. Not only Ralph Meeker, but the great Janet Blair.
Yeah,
and also I love Henry Silva, and poor Henry Silva, one of those ethnic actors that is called upon to play from the Korean houseboy in the Manchurian Candidate to Generalissimo in this, to a ton of Italian crime movies, and and a second tier Rat Pack member, as I understand as well.
Yeah, he was in Ocean's 11. Yeah,
right.
It's funny that in I rely on David J. Scow's book a lot about the Outer Limits for background information on this, but it's funny that sometimes it was written in the 90s and even at this point there's a little bit of datedness in some of the stuff that some of his interpretations of it, like he was Janet Blair and Ralph Meeker are the same age, they're 40, right?
Okay.
And in this, and apparently her part was written for a 20-year-old because of course, but but Scow says that they make for an odd couple because she's
too old,
older than the way she's written. It's
she's not inappropriately younger, right?
Age. I mean, things like that have perhaps our ideas of things like that have changed a little bit in the last 30 years, much less 6.
You remember last week I said there seems to be a rule that there has to be a romance, and this one felt kind of shoehorned.
Yeah, they barely got it in there with this one.
They're indifferent to each other, really.
Yeah, I mean,
the end kind of you.
Yeah, and she, it's. I mean, clearly it's supposed to be that she's had this kind of infatuation with him and for years, but it's. Why is anybody's guess? It's
because he's hot in a t-shirt. Come on, that's smoldering heat right there, mister.
The Ralph Meeker of 5 years later than this or whatever, when he's in that Corman movie, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, he is so bloated and so not healthy looking by that point that this is the tail end of classic Ralph Meeker.
Classic Meeker.
So Gabe, maybe we have audience members like me. This is a guy whose name I knew, but I don't really know his career much.
Well, he is a kind of it's not like he had a bunch of roles that everybody remembers. It's mostly that he was in Kiss Me Deadly, the Robert Altman movie, that loosely based on the Mickey Spillane novel, Mike Hammer movie. But he was actually a Broadway he started on Broadway.
I didn't know that.
He replaced Brando in Streetcar, and
Wow.
to good effect for his career, right? Like
I thought Anthony Quinn replaced it. I didn't realize that.
I mean, he was in the first run, in the second year.
I didn't know. Okay.
And, I mean, it wasn't like he came from nothing, and then he was in Picnic, the
William Holden, yeah,
and the stage play of Picnic, and the Joshua Logan. When they were going to make the film, Joshua Logan directed the film as well, and it was offered to Meeker, and for some, perhaps contractual reasons or something, for whatever reason, Meeker turned it down, and that was like the last time he got offered anything.
Interesting.
Like that high profile. If he had made that work and taken it, it could have he would have played the Holden role, and so that would have elevated his career a lot. But right after that, he ended up in Kiss Me Deadly. Kiss Me Deadly is one of those movies that it's been better known in the last couple of decades, but at the time, just kind of a crazy B picture, but it was big with the French New Wave critics. The first time I heard of it was reading, I read this book of Francois Truffaut reviews when I was a teenager, and Truffaut's talking about taking it very seriously, and there's a thing at the end of the movie where at the end of Kiss Me Deadly where where Ralph Meeker, Mike Hammer, goes to save his secretary in Velda in this beach house, and there is a kind of mysterious box that's been a part of this whole thing that seems to have some, to be harnessing nuclear power or something. They never pin it down, but it's opened and it explodes, and the beach house explodes.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and then it just says the end, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Mike Hammer died at the end of this movie, right? And Francois Truffaut's whole review is premised on this idea of this movie breaking the rules in so many ways that not only do the credits run backwards at the beginning, but the leads die at the end, right? And then I remember reading that, and I saw this movie in that form, and for years, and then sometime a few years later, I went to a screening of it at the Egyptian, and it keeps going after that. They get out of the house, they on the beach, they watch the thing explode, and I'm just sitting there going, what the fuck's going on? I've never even heard of this, right? And it turns out that somebody discovered this other print or something. I don't know the specifics of it, but now on the Blu-ray and all that shit, that's that's the ending you get, right? So Francois Truffaut's whole take is completely blown by the reality that a distributor just chopped the last chunk of it off and put titles on the end of it, and it was never their intention for him to die at the end. It was just a mix-up. So
wow,
I guess you can't really control that sort of shit when you get into the when it gets out into the world.
That was Meeker and Jane Russell, in a forgettable movie.
Yeah,
that I just showed the still from. I'm on the Ralph Meeker IMDb page, and I keep looking. Oh, there's another one with him and Russell. Go on.
I always talk about actors' faces and how they can drive their career. He's got a very interesting face to me. He's kind of an everyman, but there's a little bit of an edge to him. When he snaps, I watched the Hitchcock episode you recommended.
Yeah.
When he beats that guy to death, you're yeah, I get it.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's what Kiss Me Deadly is all about. That he is the least likable character imaginable, and he just goes around beating the shit out of everybody. And there's a guy he intimidates he goes to talk to who loves Caruso, and he has these records and stuff, and he just takes these records and breaks them in front of him just to be mean, and but one of the things I've always admired about Ralph Meeker is that he has weird hair. It seems like he has normal hair, but it's as if he's never quite has any sort of stylist working on it, and there's always some weird piece of hair sticking up. But that's just my personal Ralph Meeker hair fetish. But but one other thing that he's really good in that's probably in a way a better movie than Kiss Me Deadly is the Anthony Mann, James Stewart, The Naked Spur. He's like one of the supporting characters in that. And he's actually really great in that movie. And that movie's just great anyway.
God, yes.
I hate to say this. I saw Paths of Glory like last year, and I don't remember Meeker being one of those poor bastards.
I didn't either.
He totally is. Yeah. I mean, he's one of the 3 guys, or 4 guys, whatever it is.
God, he made it to 1980 with his credits, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I think then he had, I think he died like in the late 80s. Had a stroke.
88 of a heart attack. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, have you seen his birth name? That is something.
Yeah, I did see it.
Rathgeber.
Oh,
Rathgeber? I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. A little ultra Germanic there.
Absolutely. And then go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, moving on to Janet Blair and her very interesting career. She's one of those great noir ladies.
Yeah, it's like she's been in a whole bunch of stuff, and I've really never seen any of it for one reason or another. Like a Red Skelton picture or something.
Oh, that's so funny. Sure. I'm bringing up her credits in a second.
Oh God, yeah, the Fuller Brush Man. I've seen that damn thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She's in some sword and stand up. No, I'm not. It's more of a Robin Hood kind of thing.
She's in Blondie Goes to College, everybody. Let's see here. I'm trying to find Tarzan Spars, which I had heard she was in. That featured the debut of Sid Caesar. It's a military movie during the war years, and it's about the Coast Guard. And that was the first showcase for Sid Caesar, and he did a really famous kind of bit making fun of World War I flying ace movies. And Janet Blair was the female lead in that film, and from that, Caesar was really discovered, and that's kind of where his about 3 years later he got his television show.
Nice.
Funny, I didn't know that. I
Have Trouble sounds very familiar to me, but I can't quite place it. It's got French tone in it.
One thing, this has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but I was watching on the Criterion Channel. They have a Joan Crawford thing, and there's a pre-code Joan Crawford movie called Dancing Lady, I think.
Yes,
and it's like featuring Ted Healy and his Stooges. Which they have a very minor role in it. But I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, and I'm always fascinated when we see Healy with the Three Stooges, because Healy really takes the Moe persona. Obviously, it started with him.
Yeah,
and Moe is just another one of the knuckleheads. Really, I mean, he is still the angry stooge, but they are absolutely subservient to him. And yeah, that's a Gable Crawford movie, isn't it, Dancing Lady?
It is. Yeah. It's a good picture too. It's really well made
and funny. And again, I welcome the tangent, because it reminds me, as I look on my DVR, I haven't watched it yet, but I recorded a 1936 Gable Crawford film where it's a pre-World War II spy movie.
Is that just on TCM a few days ago?
Yes, it was.
I saw part of it. Yeah.
Was it Love on the Run? Yes, it was. Love on the Run, 1936. Yeah. Once again, Francois Tone, Tone. And Joan Crawford. Yeah, I like pre-mascara Joan.
Yeah.
When she was much prettier.
In that one, she was starting to look like adult Joan. There's some of those early films where you're like, I can't even really see Joan.
In those pre-code movies, and some of those silence. I mean, like she's in that Lon Chaney movie. I can't remember, but he plays it like takes place at the circus, and he plays like a guy who pretends to not have arms, and she's a woman who can't stand to be touched by men, and then he has his arms surgically removed in order to appeal to her. Wow, those movies are incredible. I mean, those Lon Chaney silence are fucking perverse.
Yeah, that shit, absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah, but you couldn't tell it's the same person. Her, that when she's younger and before her kind of usual persona, is figured out.
So we were talking about that movie with Crawford. Am I alone in that Gable is like the only one of the golden era real legends that never really appealed to me much?
I love Gable.
Yeah, you're totally wrong. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I love Gable.
I think Chaykin agrees with me.
That's funny.
Him. I like It Happened One Night, but he doesn't wow me with charisma the way the other guys do.
Oh, no, I don't get that at all, though. I think he's really charismatic. And honestly, It Happened One Night, I think, is just one of the greatest movies ever made. And he's so good in it.
I do like him in that one a lot.
But I think that he's really good in a lot of, especially the 30s stuff. I think he's really great.
Yes, but before he started just getting heavier, and sadly, I'm sure after
I never really wanted him to get the girl. I don't know why.
That's hilarious. That's very funny.
Too perfect looking, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's just issues with yours.
I like Gable with Spencer Tracy. They really played well off each other in all those great movies. So Jet Pilot and San Francisco among them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So no, I'm a big fan. Another great character actor. Back to the show, believe it or not. I'll turn it back to the show. I'm a big Jay Novello fan because he was not only a great character actor and always played various ethnic roles as well, but he was a great radio actor as well and had a very different voice. And he wasn't the foreigner that he was usually depicted as in so many of these character roles.
Right.
And I really love his radio acting as much as I do his TV and film acting.
The two TV shows I've probably seen most in my life are Andy Griffith and probably original Star Trek. And he's in a couple Andy Griffiths. And so for me, he's always like a conniver, a con man.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of cool to see him playing this kind of distinguished guy with no glass in his glasses, kind of staring at the fish creature.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that I just feel like I know from.
No, he's not in that one.
And can never quite remember what,
He's in that one of those Andy Griffiths. He plays kind of a shyster lawyer who convinces Otis to sue the courthouse and sue Andy in the county or whatever. A great episode. I Love Lucy. I mean, God, I'd be interested. Do they number? They don't number credits, do they? Because I really think if we went through.
Oh, can't you see his total number of? He's got 205 actor credits.
There you go. I mean, yeah. And he made it to 1982.
These directors were like, give me that funny looking little guy that talks fast. He's kind of ethnic. I need him.
Yeah. Here's a great picture of him.
Just going back to Henry Silva for a second, like one of the things that I saw when I was looking at stuff about him is that he was like an actor's studio guy, and like,
oh really?
I didn't know that.
He was along with like Ben Gazzara and Shelley Winters of that like era of it, and he was what's his name, Harry Guardino, who was in.
I love Harry Guardino, absolutely.
The other episode we did, Human Factor.
Yes.
And he was kind of terrible in that one, but he's good in general,
yes.
But I just thought that was really interesting. I mean, and he's also in. I also have to. Henry Silva is also in The Tall T. The Bud Bedecker Western that I always bring up, which is totally worth looking up. And that's the podcast I want to do. I want to do the Bud Bedecker series.
Please, can we do that? Can that be the next show?
I'm talking to Hillary Bard on Twitter about it. I mean, maybe he and I can do that.
There you go, man. There's a nice color.
You have to explain to him what a webcam is.
I know, Hill. And we're so far behind. There's Henry on the right. I don't know what that's from.
Is he actually? Oh, he can't be playing somebody dashing, right? He's probably the villain.
Probably, but and of course, I believe this is from that Chuck Norris movie he did. Was it Force of One? I can't remember specifically. Yeah. There you go. And no, exactly. Classic bad guy. Always a bad guy, Henry Silva.
Yeah, that probably wasn't his favorite thing in the world. I mean, whenever you're just typecast as one thing forever,
sure.
People like it. Some people are happy with it, but
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he is one of those guys that there are a million Rat Pack stories of hanging out, and other celebrities as well. So and maybe he was like a good time Charlie kind of actor that was happy. Like, all right, I'm working, I'm cool.
He's still alive. He's 93 or something, and I made a cursory attempt at figuring out if we could get an interview with him for the podcast, but
amazing.
It didn't go very far. Like I apparently, if we want to book him for our event, $2,500 will do it. But apart from that, I'm not quite sure.
Is he not on Cameo?
What's that?
He's not on Cameo.
Yeah, exactly.
We could pay him $40 to say something we wrote about the episode.
That's awesome.
I don't think that anyone who knows who Henry Silva is has heard of Cameo. So,
yeah, he and Angie
it looks
Dickinson
like
are
in his credits, his last screen credit. It looks like they brought him in to sit on the set for a day when they remade Ocean's 11.
Oh yeah, right.
Like,
it was him and Angie Dickinson. They were at the fight. They were at the boxing match.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I was going to say he and Angie are like the last two Rat Pack survivors, I think. Well, and Shirley MacLaine, I guess, technically.
I thought he was in Dick Tracy, and sure enough, he was. He's
I saw that too. Yeah. I don't really remember. I feel like Dick Tracy's. I actually went back and I watched a bunch of Warren Beatty movies a couple of years ago, and I watched Dick Tracy again. And I still feel like I'm not sure I remember the movie. Like it's so I don't know. There's something about it. There's there's all the production value and the aesthetics and all that stuff, and I still never feel like it's quite a movie somehow.
Yeah, I love the look of it. It didn't have much of a script.
Yeah.
I didn't realize from a voiceover acting aspect.
Yeah, he played Bane.
He was Bane in both Batman and Superman. That's pretty cool.
So this episode was it was directed by that guy Laszlo Benedek. The man with the power. And then he does one in the second season called Wolf 359, Star Trek reference. But the writer actually was kind of interesting. Dean Reisner, he who apparently hated this thing, right? Like he hated this. In the Scow book, there's a quote with him saying that he doesn't that since the limitations of the show meant that he turned in some shabby material and leaned way too much into the special effects. It's like, dude, you maybe you could just not blame everyone else for you not writing a good script, but
this is the only episode that has voiceover, so that made me wonder right away.
Yeah, exactly. The control voice comes back in two different spots just to explain what the fuck is going on. That's not exactly the mark of quality.
Good writing, absolutely, man. That's awesome. And also, I can't help but think of Sea Hunt when I watch this episode as well, and especially because I was a big Mike Nelson, Lloyd Bridges fan.
Yeah.
So I love that show. I really, honestly, I've said this before in other podcasts. I love how unfortunately represented by the monster in this movie, it does take away some of the mystery and wonder of undersea exploration. But I really do love the 60s and how deep sea diving and the Jacques Cousteau documentaries and shows like Sea Hunt, where it really was cool.
Yeah.
Seeing frogmen and stuff.
Two things about this episode that threw me back into memories of my childhood where I watched TV and go, why? One is the deep sea diving. That was all the rage for a while. And the other is these South American dictators. That was There's even a Gilligan's Island with one of them, and I was like, "What? Why with these guys with the Generalissimos?"
Castro was in the paper,
right.
And these people are scrambling to come up with something to pitch, and they're like,
Castro type,
and I will say that I think there is some, there's a potential interest in this thing with the kind of capitalist American
the geopolitics,
versus
at the end, my wife and I were sitting there, and I go, so did they try to tie two themes together there about tyranny? Like it's wrong to be a tyranny in the capitalist spirit, but it's also wrong to be a tyrant.
Yeah, I really do think that's what they were somehow trying for. I think that we also learned in this episode that you just fucking listen to the scientists. The only people in this fucking thing that are making any sense or do anything good are the scientists who have some idea what's going on.
Please, I live in 2020. That's crazy talk.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's one point where Meeker comes in, and the fish guy's in the tank, and he's like, "All right, load them up. We're taking them back to the U.S. Don't worry, it's for science." And he throws the line away. So like he got halfway through the line and lost all enthusiasm for life. You know?
I thought so. Even lazier than the voiceover. I thought the mechanism for how that creature got thawed was the laziest thing in the episode.
Okay, that was really. I mean, like the thing of.
Oh, damn! This door is cold. I'm just gonna crank this down.
It makes no fucking sense. Like my wife Karina and I were watching this, and I was like, wouldn't it just an easier solution here be I'm cold, I'm going to turn up the thermostat? You know, like that would make some human sense. Not, hey, perhaps it's cold in this other room that I'm not in. I'm going to turn up the thermostat.
Yeah. Hey, John, do me a favor. Click on Dean Resner's IMDb bio.
Sure.
He's got
Dean
a picture
Resner.
of him when he was 3. That's his main photo.
He's a child actor, and he worked with Chaplin.
Really?
Yeah, and he went by the name Dinky Dean, which
oh my God,
unfortunate.
Oh, I'm getting it. Hold on.
Well, God bless him having any kind of career as a writer after that.
I know. So, but his dad was a director and like a writer director, and his dad Charles Reisner is the credited director on Buster Keaton's Steamboat Bill Jr.
Wow.
So like. I mean, Keaton always kind of at least co-directed those movies, but like that's one of the greatest, silent comedies.
Yeah,
so,
you got to give it up to Dean Reisner. He did write The Sting, too.
No, he has at least a co-writing credit on Dirty Harry and Angela. So, but like like 15 people are kind of credited with writing, at least Dirty Harry. I mean, I know John Milius and Terrence Malick wrote, drafts.
Yeah. It looks like he was involved in the entirety of the writing on Rich Man, Poor Man, which was a major cultural event back in the day.
Yeah, I think that's probably like his big credit.
Yeah.
Also,
he wrote on a show that I've always been fascinated by because of my love of Neil Adams, but I've never seen. He worked on the Ben Casey show.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I've watched Ben Casey.
I've never seen one.
I've never seen
Sam Jaffe. Vince Edwards, Sam Jaffe, sure.
Yeah, totally.
Man, woman, birth, death, life, death, infinity, or whatever it was. All the symbols at the beginning. It's honestly that and Kildare. They are really interesting early '60s shows. And yeah, you're right. That's right. Neil did the Ben Casey comic strip, and you can if you go on Neil's website. You could buy full story arcs.
Oh, cool!
And they're only $5 for like the PDFs. And I bought a couple because it's great early Neil Adams. I mean, he was on point.
He knew what he was doing, man. He brought all that illustration knowledge to a comic strip, and really, it was good stuff.
I know. That strip stuff he did look fantastic. Yeah.
I know. He is ever elusive. After having interviewed him a couple times early on in my word balloon career. And I haven't had him back in at least 5 years, if not longer.
Really?
And I keep really wanting to talk more about that Ben Casey period.
Yeah.
And especially after he started selling them. And I'm like, hey, man, you're selling them. And maybe he wants to keep it on the slide. God only knows who, if any. I'm sure some syndicator might own the rights to the Ben Casey show at this point.
Yeah. He's a man who amazes me. I wish to be half as shrewd as Neil is because he finds a way to stay relevant, to stay solvent. He found that the ad business was down. Boom, he's on the con circuit. Cons went away. Boom, he's got 2 live Facebook things a week where he sells off his art. Yeah. He just evolves. And the guy is, near 80 years old or something?
Pushing 80, if not already 80. I'm not sure, but yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, the Reisner, actually, I can't I don't know how John wasn't just drawn into this fact on his IMDb page, but he wrote 2 episodes of Slattery's People.
Ooh, yeah, that is my what's your radio show?
What's that?
Stony. It's my Slattery's People is my Stony Burke. Absolutely, it is. I completely confess to that. You're right about that, man. That's so funny.
So I was impressed by the freezer set. Did it strike anybody else as a morgue set that they had kind of repurposed?
Definitely.
That's funny. I like it.
The one thing about the fish eyes, the big fish eyes, like I'm sure I've told this story before, probably on this show, but like I was working on this movie Reign of Fire like years ago, and one of the earlier movies I worked on, and
good fish eyes. There we go.
And like when it was a Disney movie, but in that period when they still made different sort of stuff to some extent. And the studio executive came in, like the head of production for Disney came in to look at all the art, of the dragons. It was a movie about dragons, like scary dragons. And he went around and looked and pointed out the eyes of the dragon and said, those eyes should really be bigger because we're not going to be able to empathize with these dragons if it doesn't have large eyes, right? And this guy had come from animation and ended up running the feature department. And that is the opposite of how it works, right? Like, I mean, if it's scary, you do not want it to have giant empathetic eyes.
Right.
And like at the beginning of this episode, it's like you think in some ways you could look at it like the way they set it up, where they have to show the creature before the credits in order to draw in the kids. But somehow that's gonna that would undermine this show because there's nothing to build up to and there's no mystery. However, imagine if this show spent all of its time subtly building up to the big reveal of this goofball, that the way that I think they did themselves a favor just going,
right.
Look, it's got this goofy fish guy in it. You're gonna watch it for that.
Right. I was sympathizing for these kids who turn it on and like, holy shit, I need to see this fish monster. And then they're sitting through some carnival and there's fire, and they're like, come on.
Right.
Give me the damn monster.
Yeah, enough with the stock footage and
lots of stock footage in this episode, which I loved.
I like that they spent all their budget, I think, filming underwater and building these monsters and all this shit. And so at the end, when they destroy the whole country, all we see is like the edge of a building is eroded away and it kind of slides, and that's the palace biting it.
Yeah.
The dam, we see like this much of the dam and a couple bricks go whoosh.
Well, that's the thing. So there's stock footage of the dam itself, but they didn't have anything. They couldn't find anything for a dam breaking. So
Right.
Projects Unlimited, who created the fish suits, they shot the miniatures for those. So those are new shots which apparently they had one take on and just send them to the lab and directly to the editorial. And and like in the interview they were just like, look, hopefully it worked out. Like, come on. What can you do?
Well, they followed that log down the water for like 8 seconds. You're like, Is this an important log? What are we doing?
Yeah, I know. It does feel like the log, there's going to be some big development with that log.
And it really seems that at the end of the day, this was such a mess of an episode with needing the voiceover, the stock footage, everything just not working. Right. And maybe that's another reason why they kicked it down the schedule. And it's the 13th episode.
Yeah.
It was rewritten by Joe Stefano, and the stuff in there, the Stefano stuff in it is pretty fucking obvious. There's there's stuff there's a couple of scenes like there's the scene between Janet Blair and Ralph Meeker where it's kind of the moment between them towards the end. I mean, it has that kind of highfalutin, Stefano dialogue with the repetition of noises and all that sort of stuff.
Let's play it by ear, that kind of.
Yeah, and then there's a thing, and then he has the here lies your tyrant who would rule the world, immortal Shelley quote at the end, which
Right.
I don't think could possibly be more at odds with this.
The depiction of the Generalissimo. Yeah.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, I think largely because of those goofy monsters, I had a blast watching this thing.
it was
I
fun.
couldn't wait,
It is a fun episode. Again,
couldn't wait for him to
absolutely.
show up again.
Yeah,
My wife and I were guessing, are they going King Kong here? Is he going to break out of the World's Fair and wreak havoc? Or I didn't know where it was going.
it was
Yeah,
fun.
also, Great World's Fair.
Yeah.
Some fireworks. About a half dozen people milling around, a couple giant heads that actually look reminiscent of the monster
So
himself.
they had an illustration to show you how glorious it was.
Yeah. Also, the one thing about these things, like they talk about the coelacanth in this, and it's like the coelacanth, which was discovered in like 36, I think, is like the magic bullet for every monster movie ever made since then. Like if you have some kind of creature that has, a heretofore, undiscovered creature, just say coelacanth, and all of a sudden it's like, well, of course, I mean, we're absolutely on board with this thing now because one time a guy caught a prehistoric fish we didn't know in the 30s,
That touched on another thing that always bothered me when I was a kid watching TV. I know this happened on the Munsters. They talk about the missing link, and as like a 8-year-old, I had no idea what that. Apparently, that was all the rage for a while.
Yeah,
Figuring out what the missing link was.
a wild misunderstanding of evolution. Yeah. But I mean, the coelacanth was a real fish. It just doesn't like justify that every other, like whatever, fantastical monster. It's just, I think they may even bring it up in Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's like it's just something that they literally mention and use as a justification in so many like B movies.
Look, here was a weird ass fish. This is proof that our thing could happen.
Yes.
Exactly, absolutely. And again, I just love this picture because
So
they especially the one on the right, or on the left, he just looks he's like so tired.
I'm almost drowning. Hold on. I'll be in the shot.
I might die for this. But like so apparently in the script there were like 100 of them. Right? He literally wrote that there would be 100 of them, and they could only afford 3. So there's only ever 3 in any one shot, And so the ones that out in the water, and then the one on land is just that one of those guys that was out in the water.
So I was a little confounded by the cutting and his machine gun has no effect at the end. Is that right? He goes gun crazy, but it doesn't kill any of them, right?
I couldn't find any pictures of him shooting with the machine gun. I was so bummed.
His expression is great. He just
Weird. But I don't know. Like I don't know. Actually, the one thing about this show though is even with the goofy fish and all that sort of stuff, the absolute least credible aspect of this episode is that Ralph Meeker's character would somehow find humility at the end. I think we all know that this is a total fucking impossibility at this point.
and he's supposed to be humiliated by his reaction after the machine gunning, or
Yes, I mean, like somehow just the fact that the fish used its, it's not telepathic, but whatever you call it, like it's whatever the fuck that thing was doing.
It's neurosensors or whatever the hell
he
they
never
were.
loved his fellow man, but he just saw a fish monster love its fellow fish monster.
His neuroreceptors, as Ned points out, yes.
Maybe it was just pointing out the sort of solidarity there, and actually that's kind of a resonant theme for this whole thing. What with the the populist dictator and I think there's actually deeper stuff to mine here than we're giving it credit. But on the other hand, goofy fish.
Absolutely, goofy fish, absolutely.
When you got that costume, it's going to drag things down a little bit.
I was talking. I'm sorry, please, Gabe.
No, I just don't. I wasn't being entirely serious, and I don't think there's really a lot going on. It's just a goofy episode. And it's kind of fun.
It's a shame. Because of the time difference. I was talking to Paul Cornell this afternoon, and it was 8:00 his time, and he saw the montage opening that I use before talking to him. And he's like, "Oh, I see that you're exploring the outer limits. One of my favorite shows." And I'm like, "Oh, Paul, it'd be great to have you on, but it would be like 4 a.m. your time if we did it." I'm like, "I'm so sorry, man. I don't know if we could set up a matinee version of the show one time to get Paul on."
It's 5:30. He could get up at 5:30. I mean, that's really
Poor guy.
Hey, why? You're not willing to get up at 5:30 for a podcast?
For this,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean,
He's
the pay is good.
He's an active podcaster. And it's very funny and kind of similar to what we're doing, although a much bigger body of work. He and his co-host are exploring the Hammer films one by one.
Oh shit!
And he even took a hiatus. He's like, literally, he's like, "Oh, we're going to be doing this for at least 4 years." When it comes
like this is something I want to listen to.
I can't remember the name of it, but honestly, if you go to his blog, PaulCornell.com.
We were just watching some Hammer movies for October.
Well, and I was telling him about the documentary that's on Amazon Prime.
Sure.
Of course, and he knows it very well. And no, I agree, man. No, it's an incredible studio and all the different things they did.
I love a lot of the I really like the monster ones, but I love a lot of those, the thrillers, Paranoiac, or definitely the, a big poster over here for These Are the Damned, the Joseph Losey movie that after he got blacklisted and had to go.
Yeah. No, and even at the very beginning of Hammer, I didn't know until I saw the documentary that they leaned on radio and television properties. And of course, Quatermass first was on radio and television before they made the movies, but also other radio properties as well that they leaned on to make their first films and stuff, just from a popularity standpoint. So no, I'm
do an early version of this sometime and get him on the show to talk about.
So I'm saying, man, no, we got to do like a matinee or something. I don't know. Like I talked to him at 3:00 my time, so that's 1 p.m. Your time, Gabe.
Well, it's now that we're having another production meeting during the podcast, but like
it's behind the scenes.
Trying to figure it out and set it up.
Well, I know we're going to have a full house next week for the Deadly Misfits. Is that?
Is there something about this episode in particular? Or is it just the way it worked out in general?
I think if you look up the Xanthi Misfits, it's because of
Bugface.
Oh.
Yeah. Hold on one second, Gabe. Let me zoom in on your
Yes.
Hang on.
Okay.
There we go. Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Come on.
They're alien bug prisoners.
And Mr. Bruce Dern.
Yes, and Bruce Dern. Yes, absolutely. Another living contributor to the Outer Limits.
Well, let's work your magic and let's try and get Bruce Dern on the show.
You got it. I'll get it on the horror.
Tell him Mark Maron just barely got him, so we might struggle there.
Tell him I'm from his hometown in Illinois, because he went to my high school. He went to New Trier. It
sounds to me like you're the one who needs to get.
Yeah, really. I should call the alumni.
Absolutely.
It was New Trier High School. What's that?
Pretend like you're really into long distance running, right? And
entice him with the thought that we'll talk family plot and his work with Hitchcock.
And ask him about the Dernsies.
It was all right. Bruce Dern, Ralph Bellamy before him went to New Trier. Charlton Heston went to New Trier. Anne Margaret went to New Trier. And then modern actors, Rainn Wilson of The Office. Also, I was in a play with Rainn Wilson, and my buddy Jim True Frost, who is a fine actor as well.
They're at least not dead, but they also weren't in the Outer Limits.
They're not in the Outer Limits, unfortunately. And I mean, I haven't talked to Rainn since high school. Jim's a good friend, and of course Liz Phair from the '90s rock world also.
Sure.
And Lily Taylor.
You make my Paul Rudd look like Peanuts.
No, we just got more cards than you. That's
Paul Rudd went to my high school. I missed him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, who went to my high school? Fucking nobody. I don't even know.
Who went to that high school? What are you talking about, man?
Well, there you go. That's
all right. I think if we're pulling out our high school yearbooks, it may be time for us to go.
Yeah, thanks.
Another scintillating episode, but again, next week is really going to be a lot of fun because it is one of the classic episodes
as well. It
was fun.
Cool episode.
It was fun. You're right. And
John, what's your secret? So maybe you're further away from your monitor. I know we're getting into stuff nobody cares about here. I noticed. So now I got IMDb on my second monitor over here. I have two monitors, right? So look at my face. I close it. The whole lighting changes. You seem to be bathed in the same light all night. What's the secret?
I have floodlights in the ceiling.
Overhead.
Yeah, they're floodlights in the
That's the
ceiling.
problem. My studio is dim. I got the dim studio, so that
And every now and then I think about, again, in part of our behind the scenes out of the To the Outer Limits production meeting on air. They have those ring lights that that a lot of YouTubers use, and I keep considering getting, because the one thing that I do think is weird is I have this like purple pallor to my face where I think I look like I'm either suffocating or about to have a heart attack. I'm not really
sure. Lighting is behind you and above you, and then you sort of have a negative fill here in the foreground, but then you're only being lit by your monitor. I'm also being lit. I've got this like giant Cintiq here in front of me that I should just turn off so that it's not doing this to me, but then I don't get around to it every time.
Right.
So anyway, what's do we talk about like what we have to pay people, or are we going to be able to to get that contractor involved in this thing, or are we what? I mean, like, is there like we could just put out a separate production meeting episode of The Outer Limits if you want.
Yeah, these are the bonus features when you get the collection of our episodes.
Yeah.
On one hand,
you mentioned that I forgot to turn on my receiver, so there was no glow back here tonight. That was it. That was
that I feel like I was missing that. Yeah. So next time, think about it. And John, I would say bring a lamp up, like in kind of 3/4 behind you, so that you get a little bit of kick off of that. And no, can we stop now? This is.
I was done when I was talking about yearbooks. Who's still talking right now?
You can just hit the button and stop us.
All right. Anyway.
John, you only have 3 more podcasts to go before you get to go to bed.
3 podcasts from 3:00 this afternoon to 12:30 right now. Believe me, I'm ready to collapse.
Yeah.
So
look, I don't know who your guests are for the Slattery's People podcast, but I mean,
I know Dick Crenna is dead. I can only get Ed Asner. I think everybody else is dead from the Slattery cast. Join us next week for To the Outer Limits. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I certainly did, and I think we're ending on a very high note. So everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. Take care, everybody.